Okay, so on the financial side, I just want to be very sensitive to the millions of people who are losing their jobs to layoffs and being furloughed and so forth. This is not an easy time for any of us. I'm looking at even potential cutbacks in my world of Tennessee higher education, and we don't know the future. Maybe everything will be fine, but you don't know. Anytime I don't know something, it raises my stress level a little bit. The fear of the unknown is probably worse than the disaster itself in some cases that's happening economically right now or whatever. So the country is just going through a lot with the whole virus response. And so I just wanted to try to encourage you, if you are facing a financial difficulty, to do a few things. Okay. So, first of all, tighten up. Make sure you know what money you have on hand, if any, and not spending anything unessential on anything unessential right now. So all that stops. The online shopping or whatever you're doing. I know people aren't going many places right now, but there's other ways to waste money. Hold off. And then if you are seeking unemployment, right, that may pay pretty well. Or talking to your employer about whatever options if you've lost your job, being laid off. I mean, if you've actually truly lost your job, that's where you need to seek other work. A layoff, you might be able to get the unemployment benefits eventually. Besides the stimulus checks too, but which is just for everybody apparently. But anyway, but I think mindset wise, don't just be reactionary out of emotion. Be proactive. Say, here's what I can do. If I completely lost my job, I'm going to seek new employment. I'm not just sit on my couch and cry. I'm going to find another job, no matter what it is, if it's legal, and feed my family. Right. So we're going to be a hard worker. We're going to do our best. We're not going to give up, even if we get rejected 10 times. We're just going to keep going. And we're going to trust the Lord. So there's that. And then talk to anybody you owe money to. Tell them your situation. So many people are afraid to do that, and a lot of people get help if they just have that tough conversation. And it may not end up being as tough as you think. And especially right now with the virus situation, there's a lot of things the government is doing, such as furloughing or allowing forbearance for mortgages. Now, renters don't have a lot of help right now, it appears. But I don't think you can easily be evicted when the courts aren't in session. So I would say talk to your landlord, work out a deal to pay it off later when you get a job, and or unemployment, stimulus check, whatever, to keep that roof over your head if possible. If you need to move in with family, if that's a viable option, if breaking your lease is not going to cost too much to make it unrealistic, there's just all those kinds of things to consider. Of course, they're going to evict you anyway. They're going to break the lease anyway, I guess. So you might want to weigh out your options. Not everybody needs to be renting right now, and that's way too much money in some situations. You cut a deal with your family, maybe even give them a little, if you have unemployment or you got another job after you lost your primary job. But whatever you do, you might want to cut a deal with your family and give a little money there, and so they want to live with you or you live with them. So, but that's not for everybody. You got to weigh that out with your family. Talk to nonprofits. See who can help. Experts may have some great tips for you. They might be able to refer you to another nonprofit that's actually got a pot of money for this situation. So don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm dealing with a tough time here. I don't really want to reach out to anybody, but I don't know how to pay the electric bill. Do you have any suggestions? So you've talked to your utility company and all other debtors, and then you've talked to nonprofits that may be able to help. And you've also talked to, if you have an employer that you've just been laid off, see if there's any help there or unemployment benefits or finding another job. So those are some steps you can take proactively. Don't just fight this battle alone, and don't just be a victim. Let's take this thing head on where we can, and where we can't, we just trust God in faith. We fall to our knees. We're right with the Lord. We're right with others. We're doing all we can do, because if we're not sound spiritually, how can we expect to be sound economically or anything else? So financially or even physically. So I believe everything about our life can be of the Lord, even down to our very health. So let's give ourselves to God and be in the right place and to do what we know to do, right? But I hope those are some tips to help relieve some stress and that we can encourage each other. I'm not talking at you, I'm talking with you because we're all going through this stress together. The fear of the unknown is in my life just as much as anybody else's. But I thank God for what I have. Thank God for my family. I'm going to fight for them. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do my best. If I have to go door to door to find work, whatever I have to do, if it came down to that, it's not there at this time. And with the whole virus scare, you're not really supposed to go door to door. So, but I'm saying whatever finding work online, whatever would be appropriate, to be willing, if that's what it takes to feed your family. That's what I'm saying. I'm not there yet, thank God, but I could be any day. I mean, none of us knows the future. Let's have some proactive things we can do. And I just want to encourage financially, when you do have income, you decide you're never going to waste another dollar on something unessential until you have money to waste. But you've done all your strategic steps first. You've got your emergency fund in place. You've got all your essential bills. Well, start with your essentials: food, utility, housing, clothing, gas for the car if you're allowed to go anywhere, whatever. But all your essentials are paid up first, and not on a credit card. I'm talking about they're literally paid out of your income if you have it. Okay? So once you have income, you're going to pay your bills out of your income, not off a credit card that you pay interest on months down the line. Now, if you're paying your credit card off completely every month, that's different, where you're not paying any interest or fees. But I'm talking about emergency fund is not a credit card. Emergency fund is a savings account, whether that's cash in your house or cash in a bank. But and your income is what supplies for your bills. You really don't want to have to pay bills out of your emergency fund. That's a last resort. So you establish income as fast as you can, and you get those essentials met. And then you keep building that emergency fund to where it needs to be fully funded, whether that's 3 to 6 months worth of bills, whatever's right for you, your deductibles for insurance, whatever amount of cash you need to have. And then you build your general savings, because you're going to need some assets in the future. You're going to have to replace a car and things like that. You could call that your emergency fund, but you want to make sure you have enough for all types of emergencies in the fund. And so that means you might need to have even more general savings for some of those bigger things, like replacing an HVAC at your house if you are a homeowner, or a car repair, or even replacing the full car, or anything else like that. Which leads us to assets. Trying to have good cars, a good place to live, if possible, that is going to last you long term, that's financially viable. And speaking of that, if you are in the market to buy something like a house or a car, big brand new brand name is overpriced. It's not always wise. And unfortunately, we ask what we should buy based on what we can afford, and then we end up living paycheck to paycheck, committing to some big apartment or house with a huge rent or debt payment, because we could afford it at the time that we had that income. But what if you are unemployment, or had to get a pay cut, or a different job, and you lost income? If you were living paycheck to paycheck, that's a problem. So think about it this way. Unemployment generally pays 60% of your income. So your bills ought to be no more than 60% of your income, your essentials. And that includes housing. Why? And that includes, like I say, house payment, car payment, utilities, food, gas, everything should be no more than 60% of your income, because your only fallback option, if you can't get another job, is unemployment that only pays 60%, unless the government's giving extra money in a time of emergency, which it might be. But I'm saying generally, that's the right way to look at this. What if you lose your job in a good time in the market and you can't get extra money, and all you get is unemployment, and no one else is hiring right now, or it takes you months to get a job, or a year even? Then not only do you want to have your emergency fund, but if you're going to draw unemployment, your bills ought to be only 60% of your original income. That just makes sense. That's not easy, but that means don't buy the biggest house, the most expensive or brand new car, or the biggest apartment condo to rent or whatever. Because you're paying, just because you think you can pay more right now doesn't mean you'll have that income later. So what I'm saying is live on a little bit less. Still what meets your needs and have some growing room, but it doesn't have to be the biggest and the best always. So you lower your payments, and you have money left over when you have an income. And that leftover money goes into savings. And once your savings is fully funded to replace everything in your life, basically, then if you still have leftover income in the future, that can become some fun spending money for a trip and things. Now, I'm not talking about not taking your family out to eat once in a while when the restaurants are open. and doing something fun locally. But I'm talking about those big Disney trips and going to some country and all these things. That all I feel needs to happen after you've established at home what you need to survive. My wife and I on our honeymoon, huge mistake I made, went to a timeshare meeting and we ended up buying the timeshare. And what it was going to cost to pay it off was basically a down payment on a house. And I realized I would rather have a house for the 52 weeks a year to live in than a timeshare where I only get to use it 1 or 2 weeks out of the year, if that, or every other year, some of these horrible deals. And it's like, and you're going to be in a place that's overpriced anyway, and all the food and other expenses, travel. It's ridiculous in a lot of cases. Very, very, and a matter of fact, it was so ridiculous that the guy selling it to us was like, well, it's really a gift for your kids. Because basically, even if it doesn't pay off for you, because you don't need all that luxury living, on vacations. But anyway, I just went back to, you know what? I'd rather have something all the time. Okay, so I'm going to pay, $1,000, thousands of dollars to go on this fancy trip to have a hotel room that has a jetted tub in it, a jacuzzi tub. Why not just put a jacuzzi tub in my house for the cost of that trip that I was only get to experience for a few days? And now I've got it in my house all the time. And that's what we did when we bought our house. We had a tub put in. So it was like we brought the vacation home. And a home is a wonderful place to be, and we love being at home. We love our home because God gave it to us. And so we did it and it was a foreclosure, so we got a good deal, and it checked out with the inspection, and we had work done to it that was needed because we had savings, not because we make a lot of money, because we live disciplined. And the luxury money and the trip money, all these Disney worlds, no, it went in the savings account, and so we could establish housing and car and jacuzzi tub first, if you need a tub, and then we focus on other expenditures that are more luxurious later. You delay the gratification to be in a stronger place now instead of putting all this on a credit card and then owing interest for the rest of our life and losing a ton of money. I'm just saying. Now, that's when you have money. I want to focus on this recording on when you don't have money. What can you do? So again, we go back to that. We say you don't fight this battle alone, and you don't just be emotionally reactive as a victim. We're going to be proactive by taking action. And so that means calling everyone we owe money to, taking account of every dollar we have, not spending on anything unnecessary. And then after we've talked to everyone we owe, we also talk to nonprofits to see if there's any help. Get some expert advice in our local area, because it can change per region. And then any dollar we receive, whether that's stimulus check, unemployment, or otherwise, is not going to be wasted. It's going to be strategically placed to the needs of our family, to our emergency fund then, to paying off any debts after that, and then to establishing any other assets that we need for the future, in that order, if it's right for you. And that can be different for everybody and how much they put in each category. But generally speaking, those are some steps to financial health, even during the coronavirus mess that we're in. Because we're going to be out of the mess one day, and we still need to be strategic. This is the time to develop those habits now.